Hi, Roy here. Thought I'd pop in with another Garbaugust video. So Garbaugust, it's a month-long celebration of trashy fiction, pulp and sort of super popular work that is not at all literary in its aspirations. So this is an event devised by Criminally. I'm one of the co-hosts, which is great. The co-hosts are all really awesome, and the details are listed down below. I'm going to talk, as we approach the final week, of some alterations, changes of course, a DNF, and substitutions I've made based on the original TBR I had. Not that I expect anybody's keeping score, but it's led me to read some really cool stuff. So I had two little problems. One was this Guy N. Smith book, good though it was, didn't really qualify, I didn't think, for the paperback from hell square on the bingo card. Now, you know, that's not a terrible offence that anyone in the universe would care about, but for the sake of completeness, I was thinking it would be nice to read a spot-on paperback from hell with the kind of horror content that is what that sort of thing's all about. So that was one thing. Also, for the local trash square, I acquired a book by Nadine Dorries, who was a novelist who went into politics and back again. And I was, you know, in my heart of hearts, I knew I didn't really want to read it. In fact, I tried the first page and that reinforced me in my desire to not read it. So I was looking for local trash as well. In terms of authors, you know, I live in quite a small town, so although there are some authors here, a couple of Mills and Boon authors have got connections, but I'd already read quite a lot of romance, so I didn't really want to go down that route. There's a series of crime novels that seem to be self-published, but, you know, I don't really want to take a living local author on that sort of level and throw them into a Trashy Books event, especially if it turns out I don't like the book. You know, what am I going to say? It would be like punching down, really. So yeah, so looking for locals trash. Well, we're quite near Liverpool, so people from Liverpool would be appropriate, I suppose. Turns out the guy who created a 1970s historical TV show, The Anedin Line, he's from Liverpool. He wrote the novelisations as well. He also wrote a one-off war book that looks quite promising. I thought about a guy called Mike Lineker, and he's from Lancashire. That's the county that I live in, so that seemed to work. Wrote loads of westerns, including he was one of the Piccadilly Cowboys for his Bodie series. He's also written a lot of Mac Bolan books in various series featuring that character, the Executioner, Able Team. I think there's another one called Stony Man or something like that. Anyway, he's written a lot of them, but I discovered something I didn't know, that in the early 80s he wrote not one, not two, but three horror novels. The first called Scorpion, then there's a Scorpion 2, and there's another unrelated one as well. And they looked very much in the paperback from hell vein. And even better, have been republished as ebooks. Under one of his bylines he uses a lot Neil Hunter. So you can find Scorpion by Neil Hunter, which has a fine cover, but the original paperback had an amazing cover. It looks like they resurrected René Magritte to do it. And it's a killer animal book about scorpions, along the lines of Sean Hudson, James Herbert, you know, things like slugs and rats, or Guy N. Smith, crabs. Let's have scorpions as well. That actually sound more promising to start with, really. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, I'd say certainly if you like that kind of thing, you may as well read it. It's a quick and enjoyable read. It hasn't quite got the demented edge of Sean Hudson, hasn't got the surprising depth of James Herbert, but it works really well. You've got radioactive scorpions. It's set in England, and there's the characters are pretty engaging, except when you're introduced to new characters who seem a bit unpleasant, and you know that they're going to get scorpionized pretty quickly. Also, it doesn't seem a good idea for anybody to do anything vaguely sexual, because scorpions will appear. So that did all that, and I've got local trash, and I've got killer animals again, and I've got a paperback from hell. So that was good. And I'll still keep these Anedin Line books. Cyril Abraham is the name of that writer, in my pile for next year. A sequel no one asked for, so I was looking at Sweet Valley Confidential. So this is where, as a sequel to the incredibly long series of Sweet Valley High books, where these twins are basically have all sorts of adventures, usually built around romance, although with some really odd sort of forays into other genres as well. And there's a university set, and this is like 10 years after when they're adults, which I sort of thought, well, is that a good idea? Basically people liked reading about them as teenagers, so finding out their sort of slightly more problematic adult lives, maybe that's not great. And also I've read a lot online about fans like hating the book. So that sort of seemed to fit the bill, but in the end I'm reading Zoo 2. So James Patterson, written with Max DeLallo. So Zoo is a book which was one of the group reads for Garbaugust. Animals of all sorts go wild and start attacking humans, so it like devastates the planet really. So this is the sequel to that, and it's short, it's action packed. It's not great, but the first one left me wondering what happened, so now I'm finding out. So I'll get back to you on that, because I can count that towards the apocalyptic week. I think it's pretty apocalyptic. Book by a celebrity, or novel by a celebrity. I was really looking forward to Bonfire by Kristen Ritter. Whether that's because I like her in acting things, or I don't know really, but I read about a third of it and I DNF'd it. Partly, or perhaps mainly, because I just felt it was labouring the same point again and again. So it's a woman going back to the town she was raised, where she had a lousy childhood and adolescence, and there was bullying and stuff. Okay, kind of get that, but it seems like you just got that being reinforced and reinforced and reinforced, without the plot seeming to move very much. And I've got a bit of a personal red line about storylines featuring dementia and Alzheimer's, that kind of thing. Obviously you often get like a passing reference. In fact, it crops up in Zoo 2. But it looked like there was going to be a bit more of that as well. So I just thought, you know what? No. Which has left me needing a celebrity. So to the rescue comes Wesley Snipes with his book Talon of God, written with a guy called Ray Norman. So here we've got like the threat of hell on earth with demons. That seems pretty apocalyptic for Apocalyptic Week coming up. Wesley Snipes is a celebrity. I've read a few pages and it seems awesome, so I'm going with that one. So back on track. And then finally, I think when I said wouldn't want to read it on the bus, I had Bus's Annual because it would make me look like a bus spotter. I was kind of acting the goat, really. And Bus's Annual is not at all trashy. In fact, I'd say it's a really useful piece of history. So that made me think, if anything comes along which I really, really would feel a little bit awkward reading in public, maybe I'll read that instead. So I'd have to say, this book with this cover and particularly this title, I would not feel like reading in public. So it's a Hank Janson book. These are a once notorious series of sort of gangster crime books with a journalist as the hero and notional writer. I explained last time how they were banned and stuff like that. This is the American title for an edition that came out in the early 60s. Before that, when it appeared in Britain, this is where the series is from, it was initially called This Dame Dies Soon, and then brought out again as Too Soon to Die. Then the American one, Fanny. The thing is, in this country, the word Fanny is a lot ruder than American Fanny. Okay, so think it's another body part thing, same approximate area but different location. So this looks ridiculously salacious, more than it actually is. Although, let's see what we're promised. Fanny, so that's the character's name. Fanny was rich, spoiled, bored with life. She had experienced just about everything and wanted new thrills. So not even Hank Janson could stop her from becoming the mistress and slave of a sadistic beatnik artist. But she got more than she bargained for when the beatnik turned out to be something other than just a phony down-and-out painter. So another reason I wanted to read it is the treatment of beatniks in books like this is often kind of amusing. Although that's actually just in the packaging, because the original book came out in 1951, way before all of that, so they've kind of added that on to give it extra allure, I suppose. But it has got sort of BDSM, it has got weird role reversals. If you ever seen the film The Servant, if you imagine a heterosexual version of The Servant, it's a bit like that. And then you get this art theft, art smuggling plot that's like completely demented. And there's war breaking out with a country called Ruritania. Not Ruritania, like in, what's it called? Prisoner of Zenda. But it's so close, you know, so maybe somehow the Prisoner of Zenda, Rudolf Rassendyll, all that are in the same universe as Hank Janson. Anyway, it was a great read, if slightly jaw-dropping. And in terms of public, no. So yeah, those are my sort of bits of variation I've made, and puts me really on target. If I can read a novelisation or tie-in, and a novel by a celebrity, I think I'll be there for the whole bingo card. Because vintage trash, I can count the Black Fedora towards that, so that doesn't have to be double counted with anything else. So I feel I've acquitted myself reasonably well, and it's been enjoyable. There's only really one book, and that was a middle grade book that I've really found quite hard going. Could be that I'm too old for it. Anyway, yes, that's it for now. I'll be back soon with something else.